Welcome to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I am your host, Kenny Groom. As you know, our little motto or our saying is every founder's story is a journey worth exploring. We have a founder here with us today by the name of Zachary Nunn. He is I'm not sure you go by founder, right? You go by a different title. You go by chief executive officer. I had to make sure that I got that note correct. He's the chief executive officer of Living Corporate. They are an experience management company. They focus on prioritizing workplace fairness. In addition to that, he's also got an amazing content engine, if I can call it that, behind Living Corporate, where they put out some amazing video-based conversations, podcasts, if you will. And so this is right up my angle in terms of talking to a fellow podcaster. So without further ado, let's bring Zachary to the stage. How's it going, Zachary?
Hey, it's going well. Thank you for having me, brother.
I'm so excited to dive into the conversation today with you. As we both have been on this content journey, I have definitely, I think at first I was admiring your content strategy from afar. And as we've connected over to say the last year or so, it's been really exciting to see you grow what you're building at Living Corporate. So let's start out from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Before you took that leap of faith and became the CEO of Living Corporate. What were you doing with your life?
Yeah, man. Great question. Shoot, I feel like I still am. Man, I was just outside trying to figure it out, right? Like, I'm thinking about, I graduated from the University of Houston back in 2011. And I started my career in human resources at Target. And I just remember being one of the onlys in any space, 6'2", 285, big dude, right? Trying to just navigate the world of work in majority white spaces and dealing with the micro and macroaggressions of work and being one of the onlys in any space, any room I walk in. I think over time, I realized, and I kept on looking for the solution, and like you might ask a question like, what do you mean, like what do you mean by solution? Like, what is the solution for the people on the margins? Like, where do they go for affirmation, and where do they go for real authentic support? Where do they go for advocacy? Where do they go for unfiltered guidance? And I kept looking for those solutions in the context of my jobs. So I'd go to the employee resource groups, I would go to human resources, I would try to stand up things internally. I would go to older mentors, potential mentors, or people that look like me who have been in position longer. And I would have varying degrees of success. But that was me before Living Corporate. It was, hey, young, new professional, large black dude, just trying to navigate the world of work and figure out where I fit and how I can, you know, finish every day without being so utterly drained or feeling like I failed in some way, which is a really common experience for those on the margins.
Hmm. As you were talking and you said something at the beginning, you said 2011 Houston. In my mind, what instantly popped up was what a time to be alive. I'm not sure how Houston was at that time. As somebody who has just recently visited Houston the last couple years, I can
Yeah.
imagine it was an exciting place to be at that time. But like you're saying, from a corporate perspective, maybe there was some juxtaposition there, right? Where it wasn't the what I can imagine Houston is on the day to day, right? Going out and, experiencing the city versus living that corporate life like you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting, right? Like 2011, obviously economically we were like in a different place. Also, you think about like I'm thinking about, and especially I'm thinking about like 2011, 2012, because that's really when those were really critical years for me. I graduated 2011. I started working in June of 2011, but then I remember I bought my first home in 20 was it 2012,
Wow.
2012, 2013. But I just remember that season, like it was different, right? Like, I mean, I was just talking to my wife about this, right? So like for context, our first home our first home, we bought our first home, and it was a two bedroom, no, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and we bought it well under 6 figures. And like there were
Mm,
several of those homes in Houston at the time, 135,
yeah.
85,000, 100, like a little over $100,000 to get you a nice home. Some like 100,000, $120,000 gets you a nice two-story house in Houston, in
Yeah.
certain parts of Houston, right? So the landscape was completely different. Work was different. The idea of just like the idea of like yes, I came into work looking for these very like affirming experiences, but the job market was different, right? Like you didn't have to have your own brand. The concept of having a brand and working for someone was kind of new, right? That was kind of
Mm,
niche. Everybody didn't have 30,000 followers on Twitter, and had like 4 different side hustles and also had a 9 to 5 job, right? Like, so it was a different time. And then yeah, like to your illusion, like what a time to be alive. I mean, also like musically, like the culturally, I would say like the space and the spot was
mm,
different because I think the economics were different. People were outside more and they were outside differently.
yeah.
Whereas now I think Houston is still obviously it's Houston, but it's not popping in the same way, in my opinion, that it was shoot what 15, 12 to 15 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah, and that is a good point because when I went to Houston this time, I was actually surprised at the scale
Mm-hmm.
that Houston it has grown to. And I think some of the cities we've seen, like when they grow to a certain point, then like culturally there may be something that's missing, right? Like or it morphs into something else. Like we're going through that here. Folks know that my local market is Charlotte, North Carolina, where the city has grown to the point where there's now more people who are not from here, right, than people who are actually born and raised here. And so that brings a different dynamic. And from a cultural perspective, that definitely changes things. I'll tell you all right now, one of the things that's changed since I've been in Charlotte is the food. The food is not as seasoned, I will say that, as it was when I first came to the city, believe it or not. You get my
No, I'm
drift, Zach?
I no I no. It's interesting, right? Like I
This,
think the landscape of food is like man, it's so interesting. I think especially with COVID, right? Like there was man, my wife and I just talked about this last week. Like there are so many spots in Houston that I loved, man. That COVID, that pandemic, man, it just got rid of them spots. Like a lot of those restaurants just aren't there. And then
mm-hmm,
to your point about like where we're at from like to like I think some of it also has to do with just like the lack the amount of deregulation and just kind of where we are like from like as a late stage capitalist society, like you start seeing experiences degrade while prices increase, right? So
mm-hmm,
like when I talked to my mom, I asked her, I was like, hey, I'm curious, like you've obviously been eating your whole life, like do you feel like food has gotten worse? She's like, yeah, food's gotten way worse. She's like, it's like some of the food, like you might go to like some southern style restaurant, right, and get like the fried chicken, the greens, da da da. She's like that kind of food. It's like we used to eat that at lunch when I was in elementary, middle school, and
mm,
high school. She's like because those people was cooking food from like local, like they like this idea of even like being local only, like that just wasn't the case when I was coming up because obviously it was going to be local. We didn't have a bunch of frozen stuff coming in. People was cooking the same stuff that you might eat from so and so's house. You're gonna eat at the school because that lady works at the school,
yeah,
right? And so she was just talking to me about just how experiences over time degrade. Like even she was talking to me about like J.C. Penney as an example. Like back in the day, J.C. Penney used to sew and tailor and fix your clothes. But then as time goes
mm,
on, like that service don't provide that's not anymore. I remember shoot, I'm a smaller example. When I was at when I used to go to Walmart when I was a kid, Walmart would fix your watch at the Walmart, but
wow,
they outsource all that stuff now, right? And I'm
mm-hmm,
and I'm only 35, right? Like so, imagine if you 60 or 60 plus, and you looking around the world, like how many things you just see kind of degrade have degraded over time. It's not the same quality, not the same experience, but it's real, man. It's real.
yeah, for sure. That's a lot of perspective there. Just thinking about like like you said, just being able to the shopping experience over the years and food especially, there's just something that's not the same as when my mom used to cook fried chicken. Like I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, folks. I had to go to fried chicken, but there's just something nowadays when I taste somebody else's food, it's not the same experience. And I think a big part of that is like I don't know if it's culture, but just like the time that we were in, everything culminated in when you had a meal and you sat down and me and Zachary may have broken bread. Like that food tasted different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right,
It's
so
true.
so let's pivot now to your corporate experience. Let's talk a little bit about. So you touched on this briefly, right? But you spent your corporate career in HR, right? That is not a path that a lot of people select, right? In terms of, hey, I'm going to go into HR rather early on
Yeah.
in my career. Like, what triggered you to go down that path? What did you see as an opportunity there?
Yeah, like I've always just been passionate about people. And I like the idea of like being of service to folks and supporting people and helping them grow and be successful. I believe that I believed then and I still believe now that people are the center of anything, any organization. It doesn't matter what it is. If you don't have people, whether it's your people that work for you or people that you need to consume your product or experience, you don't have anything. And so
Mm,
I believed that, and I still believe that. And so that's why, for me, human resources was the closest thing I could get to the people. And that's why I chose it.
short and sweet. I like that. Now I want to pivot because as you were just talking, a light bulb went off in my head. Now, when you make the decision in your head or you start to think about, hey, how do I create something of my own?
Yeah.
What did you see during your time as an HR executive, HR business partner, right? As what did you see as, hey, maybe the companies themselves don't necessarily have the capabilities or the solutions in place to do this, but I can come in as a strategic partner and fill this need. Like what did you see that helped you make that jump to starting your own business?
For me, I realized that human resources is really a function, ultimately, like at its most pessimistic. Human resources is a risk mitigation tool or office for the corporation they work for, the company they work for. Human resources exist to serve at the pleasure of the executive leadership to help tamp down risk, be it employee pushback or any type of litigious risk or brand reputational risk. That is really what human resources at the corporate level is for. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people who operate in human resources who aren't authentic and genuine about their care for employees. But if you were to ask, like, the CEO and the COO what the human resources office is for, it's meant to make sure that the ship don't leak too bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the goal. So for me, though, I am passionate about advocacy. I'm passionate about systems reimagining. I'm passionate about org transformation. And so what happened for me was I started as an HR manager at Target, but then I continued forward and pivoted out of retail and then into like a human HR business partner role within energy and pharmaceutical. But I eventually got into consulting, right? So I started at Accenture, then I went to Capgemini, then I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers. And so it was during that season, that consultative season, where
Mm.
I'm external and I'm client facing, and I'm talking to all these different businesses, these different business owners and unit leaders and chief decision makers, that I'm realizing, okay, so this is how, because I was able to kind of sit on the outside of it and like really kind of step outside of the machine. Even though again I'm working for a consulting firm, but again I'm looking at it just much more like a shark. I'm not really looking at it with all the emotion and personality attached to it, because I'm looking at the entire enterprise. And so that helps me understand, okay, here's the real function and purpose of this space. And so as time went on, like I said, I'm like, okay, well, where does all these things, the things that I'm really passionate about, they can exist and people try to practice them internally, but they are ultimately at odds with like the core penultimate function of human resources. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, living corporate came about and the podcast came about because I said, you know what? We're real talk in the corporate world, meaning we're going to have conversations outside of the gaze of corporate HR. We're going to name harm and we're going to name parties without having to apologize, without having to look over our shoulder or double check that we can say it. You know, when Living Corporate drops a podcast, I'm not sending it to the chief people officer or a legal team to edit it to make sure that no one's offended or that we don't violate X, Y, and Z. We're having a real conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
that degree of authenticity and lack of apology for any one person or party or group is appealing to brands, because brands do want to be able to have the conversations. They recognize that there's internal red tape, and frankly, even just some from a brand perspective, like they know they're not going to be heard and seen as authentically as they would as like a living corporate would, because we're an outside entity coming in to talk, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to them trying to have a fireside chat where it's really just going to be a bunch of back patting and self congratulatory nonsense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That is I'm glad you touched on the oftentimes the imagery of HR is rather sinistry sinister, right? Like it's like, hey, like HR is there to support the business, right? But I think there is always that people element, like you said, like at the heart of a business, right? There's probably some amazing people adding value for the business, and why not have a honest dialogue with them? I can imagine for a lot of executives too, when you get to a certain scale, they can kind of deem some of those conversations as it's not worth having it because there's so much downside risk, and they themselves saying it versus having another party such as yourself come in and kind of not mediate, but like, like open the sandbox up, like let everybody have an opportunity to stand on the soapbox in their own way and say what they want to say. And so that's really cool that you found that niche. And I don't necessarily see a lot of people putting the time and the energy into their HR function in house. So why not work with a strategic partner like Zachary in that case? I love that.
But no, I mean, and here's the thing, right? We're all, because we're coming, and this is also just the benefit of just hiring a contractor, consultant, fractional person, whatever. You're not having to worry about managing my emotions or like, getting me to believe in the bigger picture. I'm coming in to do a job,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here to make sure that you're successful. I'm here to support. I'm here to drive impact for you as best as I can. And then when this contract is up, we can either renew the contract or we don't, and that's okay, right? I think like there's a benefit to that, and I think especially in this market where folks continue to cut and full FTEs are very expensive. There's an economic lever to it as well, right? We're going to come in. You don't have to onboard us the same way that you would
Mm-hmm.
an FTE. We're going to come in and we're going to provide the solution or product or service that we've agreed to, and we're going to go, right? Like, so example, like we do brand storytelling. We have an e-learning platform, and we have data transformation and analytics, right? And so if you were to come in, if we're going to come in, you don't need to talk to us about whatever, because we're coming in with the expertise, and our delivery time is pretty sharp. When our analytics solutions, Kenny, I'm talking about, you know, we're delivering you insight from, you ingesting your data, your HRS data, or your customer experience data, or your survey sentiment data, your salary data, or all data.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving you analytics and analytical dashboards and consulting like in a 2 week turnaround.
That's
Um,
incredible.
right? We're talking about brand storytelling. Like we're the ones standing up all the content for you, right? I think about the campaigns that we've had in the past with Amazon and Pfizer. I think about the campaigns right now that we're in the middle of with Intuit, right? Like we're end to end support. You don't have to worry about having to look over our shoulder. I'm going to give you the project plan. We're going to align on it, and then we're going to execute.
I like that. So there's something that I've been wondering lately.
Mm.
For a lot of jobs that I've applied for, say over the last 5 years, I've noticed something.
Mm.
The applications are getting longer and longer. And maybe this may be off on a tangent, Zachary, but just stick with me. A lot
I'm
of the
here.
data that they collect on these applications isn't necessarily for the job itself. It's some of the, I don't want to say the back officey stuff, but the stuff where it's like your race, what do you recognize yourself as, maybe gender, military, some of those types of questions, right? Like, what are companies doing? Like you mentioned analytics, right? And so that was really key to me. Like, what are companies able to do with some of this data that they may not necessarily be doing now once they partner with you?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Every company has some sort of data arm, right? Where they have a dashboard or something. Every HR team has a dashboard. So it's not a question of if they're doing nothing with, I'm going to say at least like 70% of their data. They typically have some type of platform that they're using that gives them some type of visualization that they're able to look at and use. What we continue to notice at Living Corporate, though, is that the digestibility of those visualizations is all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, I think because when it comes to data visualization, a lot of times it's data scientists putting these things together, but there's a delicate balance between org strategy and data science to make effective visualizations. You have to really understand the nature of work and understand like your audience to build something that people can actually use. Having a bunch of bar graphs and charts and lines and stickers and numbers everywhere, like, yeah, it looks really busy and it looks very informative, but what are you actually doing with that? So that's the first thing is some of these reports are they're very busy, but they're not actually very insightful. They look busy though. They look
Mm-hmm.
smart, but if you can't really action on them, then what is it really for?
Yeah.
The other piece is that organizations often are like they might have a bunch of data and they're pulling the data, but they're not connecting the dots between their data sets. So they may have their sentiment data in one place, their payroll data another place, their head count data another place, their performance data in another place, their benefits elections in another place, their hiring and recruiting data in another place, and then they also might have their compliance and complaint hotline data in another place. And there's nothing wrong with having that data in a bunch of different places. That's the nature of just technology. Yes, Workday and ADP, some of these places can sell you on having everything in one consolidated place. That's fine. The labor and the differentiator for us is we are passionate about stitching all of it together. So
Mm.
what does your Gen X black engineer who is a woman and a caretaker on your on the West Coast, what is their level? What is that group's level of trust compared to white baby boomer executives on the East Coast who are not caretakers? Right. So it's like that the ability to connect everything together and see what that person's or group's experience might be in terms of how long it takes for them to get promoted, what their average performance rating is, what kind of benefits do they typically elect and why, what their trust or sentiment is of their leadership and organization. But you can't really get a complete picture of any employee if you're not connecting all the data together. And the last thing I'll say about it is that that's one thing. A lot of times when it comes to data, at best people are looking at where they're at right now, but most people are looking at where they've been. So you're looking at historical data. You're looking at old data. You might be looking at data from last quarter or last year. The future of this space, and when you talk about like really driving for impact, is being able to build out predictive analytics so you can understand what's coming. And so living corporate, we do that work a lot, right? We're able to take in your historical data and then leverage that to build out predictive models and then connect that to a return on investment, right? So, hey, here's the turnover of this particular group. Here's what it has been based on trends and a variety of factors, right? Based just, I guess, the calculations we build and the formulas we build. Here's where it's going to be going. If you pull this lever, maybe turnover goes down. If you pull this other lever, turnover may go up. And also, here's the cost to your enterprise because of that decision. Here's the cost if you do nothing. Here's the cost if you do B. Here's the cost if you do C. And so, like, that level of insight helps organizations make better decisions, and at least helps them and also can accelerate decisions, because it's not a bunch of people kind of licking their fingers, sticking it in the air, or arguing anecdotally about what has always worked versus what won't work. We're being informed by the data.
I like that. Uh, Data storytelling. It seems like that's going to be a skill that you just touched on, but I think that's definitely for those that are like tapping into this new wave of like analytics and AI. Like that's an area where, to your point, Zachary, like I appreciate you telling that story. Some people aren't the best at telling that or having that. They don't have that ability to tell the story. And so they're going to be willing to connect with somebody who is strong and leverages that as a superpower. So as you were just talking about that whole scenario, like you really painted a full picture. Like if I can think of this as like the movie, the HR movie, right? In terms of the data coming in, maybe there's a problem, and then you come in and you provide that solution to your customer, your client, who's the main character. Talk a little bit about pricing, just real fast. Not, you don't have to get specific, but how do you price something like this that sounds rather nuanced and complex for an executive or somebody who really needs to make a decision on this rather quickly, and they may not care about the ins and outs of it, the nuts and bolts, or they may like talk a little bit about how you price what Living Corporate offers to the world.
Yeah, I love contextualizing it in terms of like a team. So if you were to go out and hire an analytics team for your enterprise, you're probably going to spend, let's say you hire 3 people. Let's say you hire like a senior data scientist, a junior analyst, and like one more junior analyst, right? Let's say you have a small team. You're probably going to, on the low end, probably still spend about $500,000.
Yeah, easy.
Right? Like, that's not just salary, that's total comp. And I feel like I'm being really conservative when I say $500,000. So for us, we like to say, hey, look, we're a fraction of that over a year, right? We love coming in and like being that partner over a set period of time, because we want to be able to stand up some solutions and be an ongoing point of support. And that really is how we operate. And it's been successful so far when we've contextualized it that way, right? So if I come to you and we put a $150,000 price tag on something and it's analytics over the course of a year, and here's all the pieces you're going to get, and here's what you're saving, because if you went out and hired if you hired a single data scientist, you're going to spend at least $80,000 in salary, like let alone benefits, right? If you were to hire a senior data scientist who like is coming in and who has experience in working with various visualization tools, who understands Python, who has experience in and understanding people data and other types of data sets, that's going to be expensive. And so we always like to see, we always like to position ourselves as a fractional partner to organizations who are looking to accelerate themselves to insight.
That fractional word, I've been seeing a lot more of that lately. And I appreciate you breaking it down that way, because at first glance, somebody could say, hey, you're selling it for cheaper, but not necessarily, because like you said, there is a cheaper component, but you're doing things in a much more efficient way. And then there isn't like the cost of benefits and some of the other things that come with making somebody full time that factor in as well, outside of just that base price that we all think in terms of the way that we pay people. I like that.
100%, man.
Yeah, and I always ask I've been asking more and more folks lately around the way that stuff is priced, products and services, and your business is an example of that. When we're focusing on a B2B marketplace, I certainly think that we have some opportunities for more folks, specifically Black founders, to go in that space. And the point to which you just explained is a perfect example of that, where there's so much value to unlock once you figure out the need for that business. Businesses have to do some of these core functional, like, domain areas. Like, they have to have HR expertise in some form or fashion, right? And so they can go out and they can kind of build out a function internally, right, and waste a lot of resources, or they can be much more precise, like Swiss Army knife, right? So have somebody come in like a Zach, right, and really get to the pain point in an effective way for whatever duration of time. But then that value is unlocked for them, and a lot of times they're willing to spend that. They're going to spend that money regardless. Why not spend it a little bit more effectively? But B2B is I've been preaching this for like the last year, so I really want to see more Black founders get into the B2B space. I think the B2C is just, it's in our face, right? Like every single day we see there's a way to sell a product to the consumer audience, but the bag is with B2B. That's just my soapbox moment, Zach.
Man, I'm gonna jump up there with you, because, like, well, here's the thing. Like, I think so. A couple things for me, because I spent so much of my career in consulting, and frankly, I have like a fairly consultative approach just in how I think about work. So even before I worked at Accenture, which was the first firm, my first stop in my consulting journey, I was a HR business partner, right? And so, really, an effective HR business partner operates consultatively. They use Socratic reasoning and methods to help people understand, like, get to a place. They ask a lot of questions. They provide a variety of recommendations. They influence without authority. Like, that's what an effective any business partner, let alone an HR business partner, does well. And so when I think about business, and I think about like where I see the most impact, I do think about selling to other businesses. I also struggle as a Black founder, a Black entrepreneur, a Black CEO, selling to individuals when I can look at the market and see that the buyer is having a really hard time. The individual consumer is having a really hard time right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like, everything's getting more expensive, right? Like, and I struggle because, people have like, they've told me, Zach, why don't you charge people for this or charge people for that? Like, sell it. And we have a Patreon that we do not update. I need to update it. I definitely would love people to support the Patreon. At the same time, I got these twins. I got 2 other kids. I got a bunch of stuff going on. I am not prioritizing the Patreon as I should, but I'm open to people supporting, right? If they want to support and give, they can, for extra content or bonus material or early content. That's fine. But like, I struggle to sell to a group of people that they need help, right? Like I'm not going to sell a webinar to a bunch of Black and brown people or queer people on how to navigate the world of work. I should just tell you that. Like, mm-hmm. that's my personal like ethics though, right? Everybody is different, right? And there's whole businesses built on selling people liberation, and like that is their choice. I'm not gonna shame that. I'm not gonna attack that. I just am not gonna emulate that. What I would much rather do, and God has blessed me so far in this, is I'd much rather give away the podcast for free, our access to our archive on our website, living-corporate.com. Please say the dash. You can go there. If you make an account, you can see our whole library, right? I'm not going to charge you a thing. Now, I am going to ask for information, so you have to build a profile, but it's free though, right? I'd much rather do that and then charge Amazon, charge Pfizer, charge UNICEF, charge Intuit. I'd rather charge these institutions who can not only afford it, but are looking for Black-owned businesses to say that they support. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm always going to be a proponent of B2B. And as I think about the future of work is not really going to be, it's like, I don't think that the worker who is like really looking to thrive. Yes, look, you can have merch and you can have other stuff. I'm not knocking that. We have merch, but merch is not in no way. I don't ever think about Living Corporate's merch site as a revenue stream. I just do not, right? I'm like, ultimately, you're going to need to figure out what enterprise solution you're delivering. And guess what? You can scale with that in a much better way, even when times are tough, right? So during down markets, you're doing B2B, you may only need to close like 2 clients to be okay. But if you're a B2C model and everybody's getting crushed or squeezed by the market, well, guess what? Now you got to go extra crazy to match your revenue. Whereas before, let's say like if in 2024, you signed a multi-year contract with somebody, with a big company, and it was like $100,000 a year. Well, guess what? When their tough year comes, you still at least got revenue from it. It's just a different way of working and thinking that I believe is just much more sustainable. It can be intimidating. But I believe it's much more rewarding, and I think it's much more sustainable, especially in like times like this where companies are closing left and right. Small businesses are getting crushed right now, Kenny.
Speak on it. I completely crushed. Yeah, I completely agree. For folks that may see our podcast content and have any inclination that I'm making money off of this, the podcast itself, like to Zachary's point, is really given away for free. Like, we've tried sponsorships and we've tried some different things in the past. It wasn't as much a focus on the money in those cases versus like the network, or there was like a synergy there in terms of what we want to focus on in terms of content. And so I appreciate you saying that, Zachary, just like giving the game away for free at a certain level to kind of enable the consumer or the individual to, figure things out in their own way. And then on the flip side of that, at that marketplace kind of viewpoint, right, using some of those B2B relationships to really make a living and become whole again, if I can say that from like a revenue perspective. I'm not mad at that at all. I'd appreciate if a big company came along and threw the bag our way for this podcast stuff. But certainly I'm not looking to nickel and dime my way to, a point of consistent or a surplus of revenue from a content perspective. So I appreciate you throwing that out there. That is a good segue, though, because I want to touch real briefly on the content itself that Living Corporate has. I think I saw on the website you all have 1,000+ podcast episodes. So we're approaching 100.
That's right.
I don't even know what I'll look like if I were to produce 1,000 pieces of podcast content, but that is neither here nor there. Like, talk a little bit about your strategy from a content perspective, where it's not just you having your show, right? You're bringing along others, and it's really this network effect that has been really cool to kind of witness you do that. But talk a little bit about what other content you have on the platform besides your Living Corporate base product. and then like, you know, what this does for your business overall, having this much content at your fingertips to give to your audience.
Yeah. So, first things first is we have, obviously, to your point, we have myself, Living Corporate, Real Talk Tuesdays. Man, Real Talk Tuesdays, we've been like in and around Tuesday because Kenny, man, I'm telling you, man, these newborns have been whooping my behind, but we still uploading. And when that, we're having really frank, unapologetic, unfiltered discussions about the world of work at the intersection of lived experience. And so we're going to talk about, honestly, everything we talked about today, between employee experience, customer experience, navigating the world of work as an ally. What does it mean to like really be inclusive, managing your own wellness and the whole scope of wellness? What does that mean? Different types of research. So we're going to interview academics, advisors, elected officials, influencers, authors, entrepreneurs, civil servants. The list goes on. But that's not the only show, to your point, on the Living Corporate Network. We also have we also have a show called Your Turn, which is really aimed at Gen Zers and very, very young millennials. And that's really hosted by my siblings, who are a band called None Above. And so they do a really good job just talking about the business of music, because they're a band. So they talk about the world of music, and they talk about navigating the music world as young black professionals, young black artists. We have a show called We Ain't Dying for This, hosted by Crystal Johnson, who is a DEI HR executive, but she's talking about black women and liberation and identity. And then we have a bunch of other like limited series that have been on Living Corporate. So they're not in perpetuity. Living Corporate proper, Real Talk Tuesdays, and the bonus shows that come from me are the only things that go on that will never stop. Right? There's never an off season for Living Corporate flagship. But we've had a bunch of other shows over the years, right? I'm thinking about the fact that Living Corporate started in 2018, right? So we've had a lot of different shows. We've had the Access Point, which was built on supporting and advocating for aspiring professionals, younger people coming out of college. We've had the Tap In with Tristan. Tap In with Tristan was all about resume writing and getting a job and like navigating the world of LinkedIn. We've had Liberated Love Notes, which is about black women and identity and healing and growth, right? So we've had all sorts of limited series, right? If you're talking about 20, 30, 60 episodes. And to your question about how does it fill into our larger content strategy, one, we want to be able to be a resource for folks. So when you go on our website and you type in something or you look for something, we want to be able to be a thought leader. And so we're passionate about creating content that's engaging. And then on top of that, the content, though, our podcast, after a while, Kenny, I had to ask myself, okay, what is the lifespan of a pod episode, right? If you drop a pod on a Monday, what is the value of that pod 2 Mondays later? Right? And the answer for most people is not that much. Like, you chew the gum, you spit it out, you pick another piece of gum, right? And that's not a slight on that particular pod. I mean, like Bruce Springsteen, I want to say, and Barack Obama had a podcast. Do you go back and listen to them podcast episodes? No. Some of y'all don't even know, people listening don't even know they had a pod. You know what I'm saying? So what do you do, though, with all the IP, the thought leadership that you've created over time? What do you do? So for us, what we decided to do, we decided to take all of the transcripts of all of our podcasts, and we decided to build an AI engine called Insight Engine. And we fed the transcripts into this engine and then turned those transcripts into e-learning modules. And then we took those modules and we put them on a custom player, like a custom environment, very similar to like Spotify. But it's Spotify, but for employee experience and inclusive leadership. And we sell that as a B2B subscription to companies looking to drive engagement and drive learning and training.
I wish I had a cash I wish I had a cash button. Cause that is like a money. That's a gem right there. Like you dropping gems or something like that. A sound. Cause that was amazing. But keep going, Zach. I just got excited. I don't know if you could tell my eyes got big as you were talking. But that excited me what you just said and then you explained, and I hope people are listening to that little nugget because I'll be clipping that up for sure.
No, no, I was trying to find. Hold on, I was trying to find. Just trying to. I got my little soundboard thing
Yeah,
right
the
here, so I
flex
was just trying to
bomb.
find.
Yeah, that's a good one. The flex bomb. Yes, yes. Play it, please, because what you just said, I don't think people really understand the context of that. If you have 1,000, yeah, play it. Go ahead. Thank you, sir. Yes, play it again and play it one more time if you want, because that sounded like money being dropped, gems. But man, having 1,000 transcripts and then dropping it into the AI, now that's something informed, right? Like you, to your point, as you were explaining, it's like it's gonna give you something that is really tailored to what Zachary's been talking about since 2018, right? Like that's powerful in and of itself having that, and then you turn around and charge for it. Oh my gosh.
It's so and so. Look, man, it's a great tool because, and I man, I just want to say, I want to say, man, shout out to Amplify Credit Union. Amplify Credit Union. I'm an excellent partner. And um, Angela, and the whole team over there, Ashley Cunningham. I just want to just Angela Shaw to be clear. Ashley Cunningham, but really like their willingness to be like an early partner, an early client for the tool, and like it's so dope seeing them. We have some other clients as well who like will make a playlist because what you do is so think about it like this. Think about like Spotify. You go on Spotify and you're like, I need to make a playlist for my cousin graduation party, or I need to make a playlist for my baby's eighth birthday party. So you're gonna go on Spotify and you're gonna type in some songs, right? There's all types of songs. You choose what you want. You take that playlist and then you can then send it out to people. You can send it to your partner who's then gonna who's gonna play it on the Bluetooth speaker, or you send it to whomever, right? So it's really the same idea in this platform. It's really
Mm.
about you can make a playlist on like let's say Hispanic Heritage Month. And because we've been talking to so many people over the years, there's gonna be modules on supporting Latinx identity. Why the term Latinx? Why does everyone agree on Latinx? Right? Like what does it mean to be an ally? Like what does it mean? Like we have tons of content like that. You want Women's History Month, supporting women in the workplace. Why women are effective leaders, why this, why that, right? Like, but there's a treasure trove of content from all the discussions we've had over the years. And so then what you're able to do then is you can build out playlists and then share them to your organization's intranet, to their environment. So the reason I want to shout out Amplify is because I love the way that they're like, hey, look, we got our cultural calendar, and we have the things that we want to highlight, and we're going to leverage this platform. We're going to build playlists, and every month we're going to release a different playlist to highlight different topics.
Mm.
And so and so it's not a pure LMS, right? So when you click that module, you're going to get the audio or video file or both. You're going to get a summary of what that conversation is about. You're going to get discussion questions, and you're going to get action items. And the reason why I did not want to try to build a Skillsoft or a Udemy is because I'm not looking to replace a pure LMS. I'm looking to be that solution as brands divest from full scale DEI teams and spending $30,000 on DEI speakers, that this can be an ongoing resource that is economically feasible for them, and can be
Mm-hmm.
something that supplements and sits alongside a pure LMS.
Hmm. Bars. I'm not. I don't even need to say nothing else. I just folks listen in. to what he just said. You held that into the end, so I'm glad because that's the clippable moment for sure, or one of the many. But just hearing you say that just now, I got a little too excited. But I just want to say thank you for being on as a guest. Like seriously, Zachary, this is I learned from the first second you started talking until the end, and it only got better and better. There was like a amazing ramp up to you closing us out with that. Speaking of closeout, I definitely want to pass it to you. Let folks know how they can tap in with the brand. I think you mentioned the URL earlier, but I want to make sure we get that right at the end so folks know where to tap in.
For sure. Look, man, it's living dash corporate. Please say the dash.com. But if you just Google living corporate, we will pop up. Kenny, I'll give you my LinkedIn on so that way I'm Zachary Nunn, Zach Nunn. Look me up. There's really only two Zach Nunns. All right. There's this Zach Nunn, and there's some like Republican MAGA dude from Iowa. Like I'm obviously not that Zach Nunn, but I'm gonna give Kenny the information. Y'all click the links in the show notes. But again, it's Living Corporate. Google Living Corporate. We will pop up. If you want to go to a URL, living-corporate.com, or you could do livingcorporate.co, livingcorporate.net, livingcorporate.us, livingcorporate.org, livingcorporate.tv, livingcorporate.ai. If you can do like we everywhere, just search Living Corporate and we're gonna pop up.
I like that. Lasting thought. What do you want as the lasting thought for our listeners who chimed in, listen today to this conversation? Like, what do you want them to take away and remember from this amazing conversation that we had?
So my assumption is that the majority of your listeners are like individuals, like black and brown, probably working people, right? They're not necessarily like
Working
executive
business
buyers.
owners. Yeah, working business owners, but you hit it right, the nail right on the head. Black and brown for sure.
Cool. So I think the takeaway I want people to hear is that like you're enough. You are not your productivity. You're not your brand. You're not your revenue. You're enough by yourself. And you don't have to be defined by those things, even though capitalism demands that we are. I think the other thing I want to say is that you can't outperform white supremacy. So seek to be yourself every day. Seek to be more authentic to your own principles and goals every day. And allow those goals to be things that are not driven by what some white folks told you. Allow those goals to be something that are driven by what your spirit tells you. And honor that. And I promise you, as someone who's on that journey with you, every day gets a bit more liberating.
Appreciate it, Zach. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast, folks.